League is a hard game, and mentally taxing at that. But no matter what anyone says at the end of the day, you are the sole factor that determines whether you climb or not. And quite frankly, I have not been getting the results I want this split. It is currently May 6th. We have 9 days left until split 1 of season 14 ends, and I have found myself stuck between 500 and 600 LP for the entirety of it. The split started 117 days ago, and I have played 416 games since the start. That works out to almost exactly 3.5 games per day. As I've thought about why my progress has been so stagnant this split, I think I realized that I was not locked into a learning mindset that you really need to improve. And part of that has led me to not be as efficient or consistent with my review process. So I'm going to perform an experiment. For the next 30 days, I'm going to review every single one of my games. This should help me finish off split 1 strong, but also really help me hit the ground running when split 2 starts. I'm going to document my whole process over the next 30 days to really show what kind of difference reviewing makes and show you all the ups and downs of my league games. And there's no better way to start than getting into the games. So while I'm playing, I want to give some more info on how this is going to work. The idea is basically after every game, I'm going to do a review like I would typically do, but I'm going to record some specific things. First, I'm going to give myself an intensity rating out of 100 to represent how focused and locked in I was while I was playing. Then I'm going to give myself a performance rating, which is basically just an indicator of how I felt that I performed during the game. Then I'm going to write 2 or 3 very small notes on what mistakes I noticed in the review. I usually don't write notes or anything for my reviews, and I don't think they're necessary, but I want to see if I'm able to see trends faster with this method and just have some fun with it. So for example, in my first game here, I played against Twisted Fate and I lost. I gave myself an intensity rating of 75, which is not where I'd like to be. I prefer it to be in the 85 plus range, and I gave myself a performance rating of 60. This is because I made very substantial mistakes that ended up to me losing the game despite it being a very winnable game. The notes I wrote down was I had bad roll assessment in a skirmish, I had poor threat assessment against TF, and I had incredibly poor micro accuracy. Hopefully that gives you a good idea about how this process is going to go and show you that reviews don't need to be complicated or fancy. They just need to be simple, to the point, and you just have to go over the few key moments that determine the outcome of the game. All right, that's all for now. I'll update you guys in a few days. Day 4 was kind of rough. I only played 2 games because I think I was a little low on time this day, but also mostly because I was kind of losing my mind and I knew that. I felt fairly fine and prepared to go into the first game. I mean, I rated myself an intensity level of 65 when I went into the review because I think I lost intensity really fast. And I think that that's how things can really get you is once I was into the review and I realized how unprepared I was to play. But when I was going into it, I was kind of yeah, whatever, just another block to go into. This one really killed me this first game. I played against Kiana and I went in with a very aggressive mentality because I hate playing against Kiana. I think that she's just really bad against Talia. And because of this, I went for an electrocute setup with Ignite, so I was hyper aggressive. I think it was very clear to everyone that I was going to be playing very lane dominant. And I did end up getting caught off by a gank early on, which was fine. I was able to trade 1 for 1, not the best, not the worst. The wave was okay. But what really was the nail in the coffin was because I kept trying to do that same thing, play hyper aggressive, play under the wave. I didn't have flash. I was playing against 2 high threat champions in Kiana and Elise. Not to mention that I was under threat of support roams all the time. And despite me knowing this, I was still playing hyper aggressive and up in the wave and completely not thinking about the people on the map. And because of the way I was playing and just the mindset I was in, I ended up just dying over and over again, which is no surprise. I could have easily won this game had I just been actually focused up and just stabilized from what happened early in the lane. But instead, I just kept going oh no, I had to punish this Kiana. I had to play aggressive. I had to not be thoughtful. And it got me killed a bunch of times. These games, I think, are the most brutal for me to review because I just get in this one way of thinking and it's so hard to break out of it. So I just had to lay on my bed and just get out of the headspace for a little bit of League. Quick editor's note here. I think laying on your bed is actually not a great idea. Instead, you should be changing your environment if you want to get out of the headspace for a second. So get out of your room, go outside, go get some water. Something like this would be much better. And then when I come back, it's so clear I'm just playing so poorly, but in the moment, you just can't realize it. So after that, I was ready to get into my next game with a little bit higher intensity and really start going. But kind of the same thing happened where I got solo killed by the Sway early on, and that just set me off. And from that moment, it just became really difficult to focus on the game and keep on going and have high intensity. But I realized as we transitioned into the mid game that if I had any chance of winning this game, which I did because my teammates were able to get leads, then I needed to focus up and stop tilting myself. And while we weren't able to actually win this game because I think I just made too many poor decisions early on that could have actually changed the outcome of the game, I still am kind of happy with how I was able to recover from this game because it went from initial very hard tilt to stabilizing and telling myself to shut up and just play the game. But I found it strange how easy it was for in these games for me to just randomly hit a trigger and then start tilting myself. I just felt a lot of anger And immediately every time something went wrong, I started just getting angry and more angry. And I don't necessarily know why that is. I don't know if it was just because the mindset I was in playing against Kiana, so I just couldn't focus up. I don't know if it was like pre-game, like I just really wasn't mentally preparing myself for the day. But these games definitely were the most difficult to get into the reviews and actually try to learn from, just because of how emotional I was with the games. But nonetheless, we got through them, and now that I can see it in hindsight, like it's just so clear that I was playing so subpar. But I also got a lot of learning around like my mentality and my mindset. I noticed that when I do tilt and get angry, I start talking out loud to myself. Like I say, oh, this is stupid, stupid champion, stupid decision, like whatever it is, like, oh, I shouldn't be losing this. I'm better than this guy. And I start saying things out loud, and it just feeds into this cycle of poor play and like overstepping my bounds when I know I don't need to. So this was definitely a reminder that, you know, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You gotta have to go through some shit sometimes, and nobody is perfect. You're gonna get emotional a lot sometimes, especially when it comes to League. So I'm gonna take this learning and move on to the next days. We have a few days left in the season. I'm probably gonna be playing a lot more since I have more time. So maybe 2-3 blocks a day, and we'll see how far we can get and how much we can learn. So the final day of the split didn't go exactly as I planned. I ended up playing 8 games, and I only won one of them, so I'm sure you can kind of interpret how the games went. I was already planning to play a lot on the last day just because it was the last day, you know, it's hype. I was going to stream a bunch of the games, which, you know, is a shameless plug to check out my stream, which is linked in the description. But I really just was not playing well for most of those games. Now, did I still review and learn? Definitely I did. Could I have gotten more learning and internalized that learning more had I played less games? Maybe, I don't know. But the stream was still really fun, and I really enjoyed playing the games. It's just unfortunate that that loss streak actually sent me all the way to demote from grandmaster, and ended up ending the season off at 474 LP in master. I didn't really care too much about ending grandmaster or anything like that. My main goal is definitely challenger, and to get there is all about learning and improving. And that's the one really nice thing about the way the split system is working now, where there is 3 splits in a season, because you kind of get that fresh split restart. You can just go and pursue that goal with a clean slate. But speaking of which, I am very excited to get into this new split, and I'm ready to get to work on improving. The new split is cooking. I feel really good about how this early split has gone so far. The first couple of days were pretty rough, but ever since then, I just feel like something has clicked, and I've been performing really well. We're still early on into the split, and we are just barely halfway through this challenge, but I really think if I can just keep this up, we're gonna have a lot of results to show for it. The only problem, my champ is getting banned a lot. Talia has been banned 7 out of the 8 games I've played in the last couple days, which is quite annoying. She's pretty strong in the new season with the new runes and the new Blackfire Torch item, so it kind of sucks. But the good news is that my Tristana looks surprisingly okay. So if I lose those 2 champs, then I'm a little bit not looking great. But overall, if I can just stick those 2, I should have decent performance. But I would like to continue playing Talia, so she is getting nerfed next patch. Hopefully that'll open her up a little bit more to be played more often, and then I can just start rolling over some games. Well, that's about it for now, so I'll update you guys in a few days. Okay, so it's been a while since my last update, so let me run you through it. First, last said I was popping off, and then I went into this massive rut that I hit for like 2 days, and it was really quite brutal. I was losing basically this every game. I was playing a lot too, so I was losing even more. And when I looked back at my games, like it was just shocking gameplay. Like I was hitting mid tower without any vision because I wasn't thinking at all. My map awareness was completely terrible. I had trash decision making, and all of this was so obvious to me in the review. Like it was so clear that I was making these massive mistakes, but in the game I was still not performing well. Whenever I get into these ruts, often it's just all about like, oh, let's just get past it, whatever, let's get through it, and then I'll just perform better later. But this time it was really more so I wanted to figure out why I was getting into this rut. I want to prevent them as much as possible and also be able to get out of them as quick as possible. So I kind of like wrote down some notes about what I was noticing in the reviews, noticing how I was feeling, and I don't know exactly still where the source of it is. Like I don't know if it's my confidence that just randomly took a hit. I don't know if it was like my intensity wasn't up to par. I don't know if it was me neglecting other parts of my life so that I could just play more League. I think all of these kind of play into one possibly, but honestly what I realized is that this is kind of like the same thing that I was doing with the reviews, where the reviews help you keep a learning mindset when it comes to playing League, because at the end of the day our goal is to improve, because improving is what will get us wins. And when I was going into this rut, usually it's like all about like I just lose all my confidence. I think it's I think I'm just bad, and then I just go through that for like a few days, and then I come out the other side, I'm like, okay, whatever, like that's just in the past, and I forget about it and I move on. it's all about performance. It's all about, okay, let's just get to a point where I can perform normally again. But this time it was about like, okay, let's try to learn something here. Let's learn something about myself so I can figure out how to fix it. I want a toolkit so that when this happens again, I can get myself out quick. That probably helped me recover from this as fast as possible, because it was probably only like a day and a half that I actually had this rut. And that's probably the fastest I've ever been able to get out of one. So after that, I popped off for like a day, completely smurfing it. And then the next day, I don't know what happened. I went into another rut, except I think I really understand more why this one happened, because I had some games that were not so great. I got really annoyed at some of them. Like the league servers were disconnecting randomly in the beginning, which made me throw a game from a huge lead. And then instead of, you know, being in the mindset of like, okay, let's just reset, let's just go into the next game with hyper focus, I was like, oh, I just need to get my LP back. And then nothing good can come from that. So we're on day 28. This is very deep into the challenge already. I'm just hoping I just take my learnings from the last few days and really apply them here. And my only goal right now is just, you know, finish the final 2 days strong. So I'll let you guys know what happens in these final 2 days and wish me luck. So here we are 30 days later, and I have reviewed every single game I played in the past 30 days. Specifically, that's 160 games, which works out to about 5.3 games per day. This is way more games than I normally would ever play, but you know, I had a lot of time on my hands. But anyways, here are the results. I started at Grandmaster 538 LP, and I ended in Grandmaster 308 LP. Now, obviously, this is really hard to compare because obviously the new split changes completely everything and you're going to be reset. So LP values are just lower in general. But I mean, we're more than a couple weeks into the new split. You know, it's getting close to being roughly the same. But yeah, do I think I am a massively better player than I was at the beginning of this? Maybe not specifically in this moment, but I feel my potential to really perform and improve as a player has greatly increased. So I want to kind of give you guys the rundown of what I think really this experience has taught me and what I learned. The first thing is reviews will always keep you in a learning mindset. No matter how frustrated I was or tilted I was in a game or how much I felt like there wasn't anything I could have improved, whenever I looked at the review, I always saw a mistake that I made. If the game was hard winning, I always saw a mistake. If the game was hard losing, I always saw a mistake. So I never went into a block confused about what happened in the last one. I always knew that there was a reason that I lost the previous game. I also really got reminded about the importance of intensity, because every single game that I went into with low intensity, I just felt so bad later when I had to review that game because I knew that I could have been making better decisions had I just been more intense. Like, no matter what you do, if you are not playing with intensity, there is no way you're going to be performing at your best. And this is a constant reminder to me that I really need to be on top of my game. I really need to make sure that I am fully locked into my blocks if I want to perform at the highest level. And kind of what happened with my rut, I realized that there's a way to learn about everything. Like, it's not just about the gameplay specifics, but it's also about, okay, let's learn how I can make sure that I don't lose my confidence. Let's learn about how I can make sure that I'm going into blocks with intensity, what kind of things do I need to do? What kind of feelings do I have? Like, what are the signals that I'm going to be maybe playing not at my best? And I can use all of those things to kind of create a routine, create a toolkit to help me figure out how I can be at my best performance. I will say that over these 30 days, I've felt that I'm really at the brink of elevating my gameplay to a whole nother level. Like, you know, you're not going to just randomly like start reviewing and then boom, instantly you're just popping off, right? I mean, you can do that if you never reviewed before. You're probably going to get a lot of learning very quickly, very early on. But where I'm at, it's not that easy to just randomly start like popping off just because I started reviewing. It's a lot about like, I had to re-ingrain these habits, really like build them into my muscle memory, see the patterns over and over again. And I think that's where a lot of learning is done in League, because I used to like kind of look at my gameplay and I would see mistakes, but now I'm seeing like, wow, these are really bad mistakes that are so clear, and everything is becoming much more clear to me. For example, like support roams have been something that I focused on over the past couple weeks. And I got to the point where I saw this early play, and normally I would always take it and I'd be like, wow, the support showed up. But in this scenario, I actually had the thought in my back of my head. I'm like, oh, Pyke is actually moving here, because I saw my support also on the roam timer and I saw bot lane that there was no Pyke. And like that kind of thing, like it really excites me, because I would have completely missed that stuff had I not been reviewing. So yeah, it's not instant, but Rome wasn't built in a day. Now, am I going to continue doing this, reviewing every single game? I think 100% yeah. Now, I'm not going to, you know, completely BS it. I probably am going to miss a few games here and there, but really the amount of learning that I've gotten from this review, I feel like there's just only good things to come from it. It helps you stay highly intense throughout the block. It helps you limit your games, which obviously I didn't do that well, but it helps you be more efficient with your time overall. Now, I don't think that the way I did it was exactly the perfect way. Like, giving myself a performance rating and intensity rating is not really that easy, and it was kind of arbitrary. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was very dependent on my mood that day and how I felt I performed and my expectations. But it was more so just to make sure that I really was consistent and held myself accountable. And the notes for that block, I basically never looked over again. Like, I would even like look back and read some of the notes. They're basically like not understandable at all, because everything is so specific to the game. Now, I will say that actually like being more broad in my notes, like saying like miss a support roam, was helpful, because then I saw like, oh, miss a support roam, miss a support roam, miss a support roam over and over again. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to be focusing on this. Same thing happened when I was playing Talia and I lost my flash early in the lane. I noticed that I was getting ganked repeatedly when I had no flash, and I was not expecting it at all. So that gave me the new finding, like, oh, if I don't have flash, I need to be very, very thoughtful about the map. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I think it should be adapted to the person and what you feel like you need. There's definitely an accountability factor to be had there. But at the end of the day, reviewing your games is going to be massive if you want to continue to improve and push your limits in this game. Every single time you make a mistake, every single time you make a bad decision, that pattern recognition is going to get ingrained into you every time you see that in the review. And if you do that enough times, you'll be just naturally making that right decision when you're in that next game. And of course, you always have to be in that learning mindset, because without it, you're going to get lost in the results. So I'm going to continue doing this. And if you want to stay up to date on my progress and my findings, or just are interested in League videos every week, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed if you haven't already. And of course, you can check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/Sentrial, which is linked in the description. I want to thank you guys for watching this, and let me know if you have any stories about reviewing as well. And if it helped you, if you feel like it's not that useful, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So that's about it for this one. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.